wanted to go through the use of unnecessary supplements in the diet, and mainly as a way to reduce feeding costs. So the best way to do that is to demonstrate an actual horse. So if we go to My Horses and Diets, and in the interest of time, I've created this horse already, so retrieve horse. So this is Davinci, and I recently did a consult for Davinci. He's a Grand Prix dressage horse, so he's in heavy work, 725 kilos, so quite a big boy, normal keeper and in good condition, and we just want him to maintain weight. He doesn't have any conditions as such. However, previously he's had gastric ulcers, which he's been treated for, and he can be quite a lazy horse. The other thing is that he recently had a blood test, and that showed that he had high blood urea. So we're wanting to take those into consideration when we're creating or formulating a new diet for Davinci. So firstly, looking at Davinci's pasture, he had access to pasture for a short period of the day after work, so it was 4 to 6 hours. And the pasture that he had access to was a couch grass, and I've created that here. So retrieve pasture and Davinci's pasture is here. So couch grass is classified as a C4 type grass, a moderate oxalate, and it was of good quality. So moving on to Davinci's current diet, or the diet that he was on before we started the consult, I've pre-created this. So if I go retrieve diet, and Davinci's current diet, and here you will see what Davinci was on before we met. And first of all, looking at the forage, so first of all I noticed that there was quite a lot of lucerne hay. Even though he is a performance horse, we generally want them to be on mainly a grass hay as their forage, and then supplementary with lucerne. He was on a number of different feeds, or commercial feeds you could say, some higher energy type ingredients, and then from here up is all the supplements that he was on. So as you can see, quite a lot of supplements. The owner herself didn't use FeedXL, so I suppose this was a way that she was ensuring that she was providing everything that she could to Davinci as a high performance horse. So we set about simplifying the diet. Reducing feeding costs weren't really high on the agenda, but for most other people, that's definitely one of the things that we look at. So I wanted to go through that, and I have added all the costs of the diet so we can see that in there. So despite all having everything, it's not in his diet, it's not a surprise that he was getting everything that he needed. He was meeting his nutrient requirements. But when we go to the nutrient graph, you can see that most things were being highly over fortified. So our energy was slightly over, and considering that he was lazy, that was really interesting, that he was getting more energy than he needed, but he still didn't have the energy required. He sort of lacked that ability to back up day after day, so he would get tired as the event went on. We can also see that the protein is really high, so 200%. This was also of a concern not only for the blood urea, which is caused by too much protein in the diet, but also because he lived in a hot, humid environment. So for those sort of horses, getting the protein down below 180% is really important. The other thing was calcium. So calcium, we like that to be below sort of 200%, and that was with the large amount of lucerne hay that was in the diet. We can see also there was a couple of supplements, particularly our digestive supplements, that contained a gastric buffer, and they were high in calcium. A lot of the other nutrients were also being over fortified, so we needed to set about sort of reducing those in the diet. If we go to our diet tab, we can go down, and just out of interest, we have got costs for even the hay, but this horse was $54 a day it was costing to feed this horse with all of those supplements. Now, we'll just point out that some of the supplements were fed at a much higher rate than the recommended rate, and we did talk about that, and we will reduce those. And that's another way that we can reduce on feeding costs, is making sure that we're feeding the recommended rate, or using a tool such as FeedXL to provide only what we need to the horse. So the way that I'm going to edit this diet is I want to edit this diet and go, and it'll go back to the diet editor. So here we can just put in a new name here, so revised diet, and we can set about taking out things that we think we don't need, and also changing our forage. So one of the first things that we wanted to change was the amount of protein in the diet, and one of the easiest ways is to feed more grass hay, so making sure our forage intake is still being met. So we increased our grass hay and reduced the amount of lucerne. So the owner had weighed the lucerne, biscuits and the hay for me, so I knew that 3.3 kilos, that equaled 2 biscuits, and the grass hay, they were 1.5 kilos each, so that all worked out. And then the next thing to do was talk to the owner about if she had a preferred feed that she would like to use, and it was decided that Easy Spot was going to be the main feed in the diet, rather than feeding 3 different complete feeds, or even though that all of these options are a more concentrated complete feed, we don't need to feed 3 different versions. So we removed the benchmark balancer mash, the Mitavita Munga, and we just went for the Easy Sport, and we fed that try 2 kilos. A Speedy Beet is a really good addition to diets, especially high performance diets. It provides more fibre diversity, so we actually increased that a little bit to offset some of the energy that won't be there anymore because we've taken out those complete feeds. And we also decreased the amount of oil as well, just to start off with, to see how we would go on more fibre, but we can reduce these amounts in here. So there wasn't any reason that Davinci was on a sort of a joint, 2 different joint supplements. So we actually decided to take those out. He was under veterinary care and receiving sort of his supplementation that way. So we just take those out. Now, Maggie was definitely one that was being over supplemented, but also wasn't really entirely necessarily in the diet, because we had plenty of magnesium and we had plenty of vitamin E, because he was also receiving vitamin E supplementation. So we decided to take that one out. Digestive RP is a gut supplement, but it was being over fortified as well. So even though he is a big horse at 725 kilos, we can reduce that right down to make sure that he is not being given too much calcium, which can cause condition or issues with their kidneys and that sort of thing, filtering out the calcium. So I mentioned that there was 2 digestive supplements. They both contain marine source calcium, and so we're almost doubling up on our ingredients here, where we had ulcer buff, which is just a marine source calcium alone, and we had the digestive supplement. So it was decided that we would just continue with the digestive RP and take out the ulcer buff. Now, Osmoplex, that's an electrolyte. This horse does live in a hot, humid climate, and so we did consider leaving that one in there. However, because he's on a large amount of forage, which contains a large amount of potassium, also his calcium and magnesium were already being met. The main electrolytes that we're looking for in the diet are sodium and chloride. So we decided to trial giving him just plain salt instead of a commercial supplement in the interest of just reducing costs more. So we actually took that one out and we added in salt, just plain, sodium chloride, which I'll find in the list here. Add that into the diet, and we actually added it at a lot higher rate because of the time of year. It was really hot and humid, so we added that in at 90 grams. And what we actually did there was we diluted this amount in 10 litres of water, and he would drink that post-exercise. That would be the water that he was delivered. So just on that, these ingredients that you can see here, so the stock gain, the recharge, and the microbiome support, these were actually used in a post-exercise fluid solution. So 10 litres of water he was offered, which contained the stock gain, the recharge, and the microbiome support. So because we've already got a digestive supplement, it was decided that we would simplify things, remove that. Also the recharge, we're now giving him plenty of electrolytes as just plain salt, and he's getting plenty of potassium and magnesium and calcium elsewhere in the diet. So it was decided to remove that. And we were unsure about whether the palatability of just drinking plain saline water, so whether the stock gain was going to remain because it's a molasses-based product. However, it was found quickly that Davinci was happy to drink the 10 litres of water just as a salt saline solution rather than having to add another product, so stock gain in there, so we took that out. Now, tripart paste, that's often prescribed or given to horses which have issues with tying up, those sorts of things. Now, not that Davinci had any of those issues in the past, but it was more used as a preventative. Selenium, amino acids, which are plentiful in the diet anyway, with good quality lucerne hay, but also Easy Sport contains a full fat soybean, which is really good amino acid profile. So it was decided that we would trial leaving that out as well. So as you can see, we've reduced the diet just back to forage. So this is a really high performance horse, high level dressage horse, and we've been able to simplify the diet right back. And we've only got basically 2 supplements there. So now if we look at the diet, we can see that everything is still green ticks here. So let's look at it more in depth. So we go to the nutrient graph, and we can see that the energy level has come down. And it was really interesting once we'd done these changes to the diet, and it was one of the things I was really concerned about. But it was really interesting that Davinci actually had more energy, and also he didn't lose condition at all. And I think that that's because he was processing his feed more efficiently. Processing protein or breaking down protein is actually quite a high energy process. So by reducing the protein right down, that was not taking up excess energy. And so it was really, really good to see that Davinci was still maintaining condition even though his energy had been reduced. And our calcium has been reduced right down to a more manageable level. So as I noted before, we want that to be below sort of 180 to 200%, and it's at 179, so that's great. We go down and you can see that the other nutrients are no longer sort of too over fortified. We're still meeting Davinci's requirements, but at a lot lower levels. And if we have a look at our costs, the diet is more looking at $23 per day. So we've actually reduced feeding costs by nearly half, which is amazing. And that includes his hay, which people often don't take into consideration because they need anyway. But so feeding this performance horse, we were still able to reduce costs and remove unnecessary supplements, still providing everything that Davinci needed each day.